Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report. And Larry Graves, tell us your opinion on what you see happening and where we need to go this year.
Well, first of all, Dr. Bill, it's a pleasure to be here, and I just wanted to say hello to my friends Shaeffer Cox and Joe Andrews, who the three of us served together in the Continental Congress last November.
Yes.
That was organized by the We the People Foundation and a follow-on to the great work of Bob Schultz. I tend to agree quite a bit with the precept of the We the People Foundation and what Joseph Andrews brings to the party in that education of the American people is vital. The power comes from the American people. We are the source of the power and the legitimacy of all government, whether it be local or regional or national. And our educational system has failed us, and we've lost sight of the fact that the power comes from us, and we are now in a position of being afraid of our leaders and the power that they wield against us. We have a government of force and fear as opposed to one of common law and joyful participation at the local level. So the Articles of Freedom, which Joseph mentioned earlier and Shaeffer was instrumental in helping to write, lay out a series of constitutional violations and remedies or instructions to the states and to the national government, to the House of Representatives, to fix those problems. And we know that there's not a large realistic chance of them actually taking action on those. And I tend to agree with Shaeffer that the fundamental economics of the United States are flawed and will lead to hopefully not a very chaotic, but definitely an economic collapse. And there will be an opportunity for us to prepare ourselves and the rest of the American people to be ready for that and to have institutions, very simple nature, the way things were in the beginning, ready and available to take the place of this gigantic, bloated, Byzantine, convoluted government that we have allowed to arise in our midst.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what we've got going in Alaska is very, very simple institutions to fill the place. We have a common law court, a grassroots militia, and that's about it, and somebody to kind of administer and oversee that.
And you include common law grand juries in that common law court category?
Well, the common law grand juries, of course, that's happening too on the side, but this common law court that we've been using is not common law grand juries and all that stuff to indict officials. This is just a system of arbitration that people can participate in the local community. It is in no way used to, wring the tits of government. It's just there for people who don't want to go to the joke of a legal system that we've got. They can go there and settle their own disputes.
And this exists in parallel with the current legal system, correct?
Parallel, yeah. Well, I would hardly call it parallel to the current legal system, but it's an alternative.
Yeah, it's an alternative that exists side by side, and we would encourage people to use such alternatives to what we call traditional government or traditional legal system.
Yeah.
Shaeffer, I'd love to have you talk about the mechanics of how you set that up, because very few people know about it and even how to approach it.
Okay. Well, it's very simple, and that's its appeal, and that's why it's called common law, is because it's been common to all cultures and all continents, the whole planet ever since for forever. There's only two laws in common law. Okay, the first is do all that you have agreed to do, and that's the basis of all contract law. And the second is don't encroach on other people or their territory, and that's the basis of all criminal law. And all common law is just various applications of those two laws, and those two laws are embodied in the Old Testament. Those two laws in common law was discovered and applied by the Papu'unas in New Guinea to the Roman merchants after the fall of the Roman Empire. The German Were Guild was a product of common law. The Scottish clans, the early American Native American Indians, the founding fathers, the Old West. Common law is what the world's used for the past 6,000 to 8,000 years, and it wasn't until just recently here that we switched over to political law, which is might makes right. Whoever's in power, whatever they can, that truth is the product of consensus, and all that stuff that is really the root of our problems today. So the way a common law court is set up is you have a jury of 12 random people, and you have a jurist. You don't have a judge, you have a jurist. A jurist is a legal philosopher who's known for their knowledge on matters of law. John Locke was a jurist. Frederick Bastiat was a jurist. So on and so forth. And so there's a secretary, a jury, and a jurist. The jurist gets paid 2 ounces of silver an hour, and each one of the jury members gets paid 1 ounce of silver an hour, and the secretary gets paid 1 ounce of silver an hour. And you have 2 pedestals in there, and each one of those pedestals has engraved on the top of it in stone those 2 laws. And the plaintiff and the defendant come and they stand before these 2 pedestals, and they plead their case, common sense, out of those 2 laws instead of nitpicking through a bunch of man-made statutes. They're rooted in those 2 common laws, and they plead their case before the jury of their peers. And the jury of their peers determines if they either didn't do what they'd agreed to do, or if they'd encroached on somebody else or their territory. And usually the loser pays for the cost of the court, or sometimes they'll split it, and the jury will help to craft what they believe would be the proper way for that offender to restore the offended, because common law is based on restitution.
Right, which makes more sense.
Justice for the parties involved. Political law is based on submission and compliance, and it just seeks compliance with the powers that be. And not only are those different goals between a political law court and a common law court, they're opposite. So the jurist is there in a common law court just to be an informational resource to look things up. The German Word Guild that listed out all of the agreed upon, restitutions for various crimes, and the Old Testament is full of those, and it's a way to enforce contracts and to have somebody make it right by you if they've done you wrong, and it doesn't involve the political legal system, which is out to just screw you for disobeying them.
Right. Well, we see this happening not only with U.S. states where they have to return to states' rights, but also the dumping and trade things going on in provinces across Canada, where we have the Saskatchewan party, we have the Quebec parties basically protecting their territory because the federal government are destroying their local economies, destroying people's property rights and autonomy. And everything, for example, Obama is doing in the federal government is to destroy normal balances between the 3 arms of government and people's autonomy, right to property, and, again, these 2 principles of do all that you say you're going to do, and number 2, don't encroach on someone else's territory. The federal government's violating in every possible way these principles.